Alright guys, Kremp again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Drazah simply cannot catch a break at the moment after losing the World Championship, bowing out top 6 with Atlanta FaZe. Now even at the Atlanta Halo event, Drazah is catching straight on the fans on the main stage, even though he's not even there at the venue. Not ideal in this situation. Also further update on what's happening with Rostermania, especially on the New York Subliners Cloud9 side. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, here's Miles Ross, just looking back really at this moment that he of course tweeted out before the World Championship began. Passionately says, Dashy's like extra push, of course they eventually got over line. This was pretty interesting as well, just to have a look at really some of these tournaments that are actually going down. So there was a $3,000 like hot pocket tournament they were running it up with, and well, the Ravens boys take the dub. Vegas are playing as well in some of these stuff, so yeah, TJ, Beans, Brian Sainz as the coach, Gwyn and Fellow, they get the win yesterday in that one. So just worthy of looking at that, which teams are getting back underway and which teams are not, because some of these teams, they are still frying, they're still putting in the work in practice, they're still trying to do as well as they possibly can for the Esports World Cup. Others, they are most certainly biding their time. This is what's going on with the Subliners. Now, whether they're still going to be the Subliners, as of right this second, that seems more unlikely than it is likely, because, well, this guy says he was at the LCS today, and Cloud9 Jack was there, so Jack Etienne, basically the owner, founder of the entire thing, and he asked him about the CDL, how things were going to work with New York, and what the new team name would be. He told me I was the first to hear this. The new name was officially Cloud9 New York. So, you know, take this with a grain of salt, this guy, because he's been making this up. We have no idea whether this is true or not. But, you know, and also Cloud9 would, I guess, be one word as it usually is. Regardless, what do you guys think about this? This is kind of what OpTic have in some ways. If you look down the league, you'll find that generally speaking, the brand name is second. Now, let's not forget, the first year of the league, it was believed that you couldn't do this. FaZe surprised many, I think, by being able to become Atlanta FaZe, because the feeling was that from the OpTic side, from the Envy side or whatever, they couldn't use those old brands because they had to tie them with a city, and, you know, there was all the complications with creating a new brand. FaZe managed to make it work, basically, by outsourcing the running of their team to a third party in Atlanta Esports Ventures, and then licensing them the name FaZe, which was actually allowed by the league, which surprised, I think, many at the time. Since then, of course, we've seen OpTic return to its rightful ownership, really. We've seen Thieves come back into the league. But for those examples, apart from, let's say, OpTic, it's been the city first and then the name of the team. So it's Atlanta FaZe, it's Los Angeles Thieves, but it is OpTic Texas, right? Or OpTic Chicago as it previously was. And as a result of that, the feeling therefore is maybe Cloud9 want to do the same thing. Now, this does sound pretty ugly. To me, New York C9 or NYC9 ain't too bad. Bit weird for New York or for Cloud9 really, because they're not necessarily based out of New York, but I guess for this season the feeling is that yes, it will stay as a city-based model. I think many are expecting that at some point over the next couple of years that will probably go away and it'll just be Cloud9. It'll just be OpTic Gaming, as obviously Hex wants it to be yet again. But apparently they're going to go with Cloud9 New York, kind of copying the OpTic Gaming approach of it being, you know, OpTic Texas. And I kind of like what OpTic did there, just because you can still call them OpTic, and you can still, you know, to be fair, it still calls FaZe FaZe. Nobody really cares. But just because it's first, I guess maybe it has a bit more value. I don't know. Cloud9, of course, will want to just be called Cloud9. They don't really care about the New York thing. I guess that's just a necessity for the time being. So still location-based. He obviously talks about excited to come back to Call of Duty, all this type of stuff. Also said the weapon charm they're working on will be very cool. So we'll see what that means. You know, Cloud9 New York sounds kind of ugly, but whatever. We are getting back to a point in Call of Duty history where some of these big organizations are actually getting back in play. We have G2, they are back. What they're going to do with the Rocket, that's another question, because they could rebrand that as well. We haven't really heard much on that yet, but OpTic FaZe, 100 Thieves, you know, Cloud9 G2, and there's obviously been rumors about TSM and Team Liquid and some of these other organizations potentially getting back involved. A lot of this, I'm pretty sure, is Esports World Cup related, wanting to get involved in that, but you know, I think we are starting to see what we saw several years ago again in COD. Now, we'll get to this clip in a second, but I wanted to share this, I thought was kind of interesting, really, from this guy, Jag. It was causing a bit of drama. So he formerly worked with Dallas Fuel, with OpTic and the Outlaws, so, you know, working with that kind of OpTic when they were Infinite type thing, and he now works with Cloud9. So, you know, basically, he's kind of talking about, oh, well, OpTic only have two teams, only COD and Halo, so they've got to maximize the impact, and he goes back and forth, and then he says, I make a livable wage with zero micromanagement or nepotism, so no thanks. So yeah, I don't know, it just caused a bit of drama really, because it was kind of implying that at OpTic, because he's talking OpTic here, OpTic fans, that, you know, nepotism is at play. Now, you know, maybe slightly misconstrued in the sense that nepotism usually refers to like family situations. I guess the implication is with OpTic that it's kind of, you know, if Hex is friends with this guy, he's going to give him a job. But at the end of the day, that's like, you know, at times good business, right? Because that's what OpTic are trying to achieve. They're trying to make the content good. They're trying to ensure that the people that work at OpTic and, you know, the content creators they have actually get along with each other and are friendly. So I don't think there's any problem with it personally. But this guy was definitely talking about it and in reply to the whole OpTic related to Drazah stuff. So thought it was worthy of mention real quick, because a bit of drama going down. This is an interesting question as well. What do you guys think about this? Do OpTic still win champs and a major if they kept Ghosty instead of Kenny? Because, you know, you can argue between who was better this year between Ghosty and Kenny on their respective teams. My feeling is probably no. I rate Ghosty as a player very highly, but I just don't think that he was necessarily the best fit for the personalities on that team. We also heard talk at the time that Dashy wasn't really get along so well with Ghosty as it was, and obviously we know that his relationship with Kenny has, well, back in the day maybe wasn't great, but since of course he came back to the roster, it's been rather good. And we heard that Shotzzy was talking about Ghosty as soon as this most recent game came out, saying that, you know, he was kind of checking us out in scrims, this type of stuff. So personally, I think that Ghosty time on OpTic, despite all the great work that he did, probably had run its course. Now, had he come back this year and stayed, would they have been good enough to win a major? I think probably yes. Would they have been good enough to win a major and the World Championship? That seems a bit more unlikely to me, but definitely intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. But let's talk about then this HCS Atlanta Halo event that's going down. Shout out to these boys, by the way, because, you know, you got to respect it. They're at the World Championship in Dallas last weekend. This weekend, they got like travel delays and all this type of stuff out of there. This weekend, they're turning up at the Halo event. So yeah, the CDL Hype Squad are there supporting the Green Wall. Boozer and the boys. I know that he was in a bit of drama last night, but, you know, let's just get into this. The passion is palpable. Here are the guys in the stands. And this is an event in Atlanta, right? So you might expect in Atlanta it to be, you know, FaZe to get a little bit more favoured in the tournament. I don't know what you want to think about, but, you know, it's not necessarily massively relevant, but it's still worthy of consideration that Atlanta, they have the FaZe Call of Duty team. You might think that for their Halo team, they might have a bit more support there in Atlanta than elsewhere, but the reality is it's not really going to matter. OpTic are going to have the most fans, and, you know, this was quite the moment, really, right? So FaZe Drazah obviously has been going through it for the last couple of years. Certainly when he was Los Angeles Thieves Drazah, it started off, and the chants were absolutely continuing this season as well. So OpTic take down FaZe at HCS Atlanta yesterday, and the crowd erupts as follows.
OpTic fans going crazy, but you see those OpTic players themselves not celebrating. They know that they just barely beat out FaZe there. Their tournament life continues to Sunday. But I can't recall the last tournament that we've seen without FaZe entering Sunday.
So in addition to being unfortunate for Drazah in many ways, this is pretty interesting for OpTic Texas, or for OpTic Gaming as it stands in the Halo side, because they are making the run in this tournament today, and of course this is preparing rather well, if depending on how they do today, for their World Championship ambitions in a couple of months' time. So, you know, we'll have a look at how that tournament's going in a second. Of course, OpTic made it all the way to the Championship Sunday. FaZe bow out of the tournament as a result of that one, and yeah, surprising to see this really, because FaZe have just been so good in the tournament so far this season really, and OpTic take them down 3-1, knocked them out of the tournament on the elimination side. Sentinel's gone as well, Cloud9 gone as well. Been a rather fascinating tournament so far on the winners bracket side, though. It's pure, it's a Shopify Rebellion, Space Station of course, they are in the winners finals. So this is how it looks going into today, that OpTic Game will play this pure gaming squad, and then we've got Rebellion versus Space Station. So we got Billy Mental here as well, which is pretty cool to see, right? Because this guy, of course, very notable Gears of War player back in the day, then played Call of Duty briefly, you guys might remember, for the Los Angeles Guerrillas back in Cold War, and that was, well, it didn't start or end especially well, really, but after those days were over, he's then made the transition to Halo, and he's made it work very well over there so far, and then, of course, the Space Station gaming team that are going to be rather difficult to stop. But that's the tournament as it stands, and it's just interesting to see how OpTic fare here, how certainly formal fares here from now to the end of the season, just because of the discussion that he had about a potential Call of Duty return. Of course, seems right at this moment. Rather unlikely given the circumstances with the OpTic Texas roster. They're not going to make a change. We speculated on it, right? If Formal did return before the World Championship, what would have to happen to OpTic for that to be the case? You know, of course, because if Formal wanted to come back, his intention would be to come back into the Call of Duty main team, you would think in theory, at least at some point. This is effectively what he did in Halo. He subbed in for a couple of teams, played for like FaZe, played for Centaurs, something like that anyway, and then eventually OpTic Gaming, who weren't doing so well at the time, decided to make the move, and Formal was able to take advantage. Replicating that in Call of Duty now is going to be a serious challenge, I think, and it's probably not going to be happening. But yes, Dashy, Kenny, they are going to be staying for a very long time, unless, I know, I'll just mention this real quick because I know that Dashy did say it. Well, he didn't say this specifically really, but he did say that he's like not going to retire before he wins a ring. Now, some people have kind of construed that to say that, well, maybe he will just retire once he's won a ring. And to be fair, I know there's been a bit of talk about this, so I thought I'd just mention it real quick. Well, I've got a couple of minutes here towards the end of the video on, like, what if Dashy just, like, retires? Which I don't really see why he would do it, but like I can't completely rule it out in some ways just because of what happened with Octane last year. Like the Octane retirement came as a massive surprise to like the whole community when that was announced, and you know, he'd obviously at that point got his world championship. He'd been competing Octane, so Octane was around since kind of like 20, I mean, to be fair, he played back in like 2013, so he was around for about a decade really, but 2015 really was Octane's like first proper season playing COD, so he played for like 8 years, and Dashy, his first proper season was like 2017, so you know, Dashy is one, like, despite the fact that we still feel Dashy is a young player, right? Technically, he's been around for like 8-9 seasons at this point. At least, like, you know, 2017 at the end of that year was his first title. And he's one of the surprisingly older players in the league. Like, he's 25, I'm pretty sure, which isn't old, right? I mean, it better not be because that's my age as well. But nonetheless, people have retired for other reasons at younger ages, and like Dashy, after all the pressure and the build-up that he's had over the last couple of years, finally got over the line, proved everybody wrong. You know, maybe part of Dashy says, maybe I do just call it a day, but I don't think he will, assuming the fact that he is going to appreciate a trade game is coming out, right? Like, even if Dashy's kind of, you know, achieve what he wants to achieve, if he retires, what does he do? Okay, he can make content, but, you know, basically every player, they love competing, certainly on a good game like a trade game, which is supposedly coming out in a couple of months' time. So I think it's a real outside possibility there. But, you know, just thought I'd mention it because there was a bit of talk that, well, if Dashy just suddenly retires, could Formal come back? Which would be like an insane timeline if Formal retires from COD, goes to Halo, and 3 years later, like, unretires from COD because Dashy's retired. Like, that ain't gonna happen, let's be real. But very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
Bro, speaking of, I don't think I told you guys, bro, some absolute lunatic, I'm talking lunatic, followed, like, me home half the way and was, like, had an OpTic sign in his fucking windshield, just
Bro,
putting it up every time he
Porter said the
passed me.
same shit.
Yeah, bro, there's some lunatics. I was
You
like,
telling me
this is
that you had somebody following you home with an OpTic sign?
Yeah, he was in a white SUV. I couldn't see what kind it was. A white SUV, and he would like pull up to me, like he'd try and gun it and get beside me, and then like put an OpTic sign in the passenger window.
It sounds like actually that sounds like on point.
That's what happened. But you know,
That's actually insane.
You're taking a photo.
Porter said the same shit, bro.
I had a GTR, so I got out of there quick.
Oh, here we go.
Here
This
we
guy
go, bro.
can't be serious, man.